I'm not sure that narrative poetry is all that fashionable right now, but that's primarily what I do in my work, is tell stories about my life and the lives of others. It doesn't have to all be true and accurate and factual, but of course that's true for prose as well. I just find that by writing a poem and paring away everything that is not essential to the story, to the message of the poem, I am able to write in a way that I think communicates much better, much more clearly. I mean, I look back at my first book, and it seems ridiculous now. It was published when I was 38 years old, and I was writing about aging, which seems like a complete joke. But it was always about family, about relationships, about how I felt at this particular stage in my life. It was always personal. I mean, my first book was actually touched on many of the themes that I later devoted entire books to. My second book was definitely about marriage and male-female relationships. My third book was very much about having a child who was a difficult child, and the progress from her toddlerhood through the difficult teenage years. And the next book was primarily about my mother as she was dying, but also about my parents' marriage and my own. And then this book goes back to the daughter and ties in the grandfather, my father. So it's all very closely related. And I can remember as early as third or fourth grade, my child writing, they had to design a coat of arms that represented who they were. This was a little school project. And one of the little quadrants in the coat of arms is what I like least. And her response was being in the spotlight. And even though it's a very small spotlight, because this is poetry after all, still, I think that's what she doesn't like.
Yeah. And your daughter has been or is going through a unique transition.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. She's always been unconventional and was very much a tomboy from the age of 2. I thought she was gay. That's what I assumed. She was not interested in dating or any of those things. And yet, when she became a teenager, she also became very difficult and very angry. And I never understood what the issues were, why she was so angry or what we had done to provoke it. And it wasn't until she was 26 and wrote us this long letter explaining that she was transgender that everything clicked into place and started making sense. I have had other parents say to me, it must feel as if you've lost a daughter. But if I'm really honest with myself and think back over the arc of her life, she hasn't changed. She's been the same person all along. I never thought of her as a girly girl. That's never really what I wanted her to be, was ultra feminine, into Barbie dolls, that kind of thing. So in some ways, I haven't lost anything. I just have had to adjust my thinking and comfort. When she turned 6 and wouldn't wear a dress to her own party, the other mothers smiled knowingly and said, she'll come around. When she was 10 and threw away the Valentine a boy had sent, my mother said, she's only 10, she'll come around. At 12, she wore her father's flannel shirts to school. They call it grunge, her teacher said. She'll come around when she's a little older. In high school, there were other girls who spiked their hair and dyed it dark magenta, but only mine wore underwear designed for men beneath her low-slung cargo pants. Waiting outside the school one day, I heard another mother say, I know my daughter won't look like this forever. When she goes to college, she'll come around. Then she added with some embarrassment, so will yours. I shook my head. My daughter had worn camouflage to nursery school. She came home from college with piercings in her cartilage. Stop worrying, my husband said. She'll come around when she has to get a job. I knew that would make no difference. She found a place that hired her just as she was. She'll meet a guy, and that will be the end of it. More than a few friends told me this. "You don't know my daughter," I said. But cradling myself in bed, I thought, she'll come around. Yeah, I just hope that other parents who have children, not necessarily who are transgender or gay or anything like that, but who are highly unconventional, who are not following the usual route, will get some consolation, some support from this book, and realize that the only path is acceptance and moving forward. But I will say I made rapid progress in a fairly short amount of time once the issue was explained to me. And I realized, okay, new leaf. That's it. We just have to move forward and get past the upset and the shock. And this is who she is. And I just have to accept it. Inheritance. After the funeral, I told my daughter she could choose what she wanted from her grandfather's New Hampshire farmhouse. She took the yellowed handkerchiefs with which he'd wiped his brow when mowing the lawn those 30 summers after his retirement, a leather belt, well worn but stiff from hanging where he'd abandoned it when nothing but suspenders could keep his pants from falling off his ancient hips, and the pajama bottoms he had worn for what turned out to be his last 8 days and nights. As I watched her fold and pack her small inheritance in a grocery bag, I asked, isn't there something else, thinking of a rug or piece of furniture? She went directly to the small spice chest that had hung on the wall for 50 years. Opening each of the miniature drawers and peering inside, she said, just this, and pulled out a campaign-style button that said, I flew a B-24, which she pinned to her stocking cap as she boarded the train for home.